So, what if I told you the single most important part of your financial plan is actually planning for your plan to fail? I know, it sounds a little crazy, right? But that's the core idea we're diving into today from Morgan Housel's incredible book, The Psychology of Money. It's called Room for Error, and honestly, it might just be the secret to actually surviving and even thriving in a world that is anything but certain. And you probably wouldn't expect a masterclass in managing your money to start in, of all places, Las Vegas. But that's exactly where we're headed. It turns out the real secret to handling financial uncertainty isn't buried in some complicated spreadsheet. It's sitting right there at the blackjack table. So, what on earth can a professional card counter teach us about building wealth? Well, as it turns out, pretty much everything. They've mastered a skill that goes way beyond just playing a game of cards. See, at its heart, their whole strategy isn't about predicting the future. It's about fully accepting that they can't. By keeping track of the cards, they get a feeling for the odds. When the probabilities tilt in their favor, they bet a little more. When they don't, they pull way back. The entire system is built on one simple, humble truth. You never, ever know exactly what's coming next. And this is where it gets really good. A professional card counter named Kevin Lewis puts it perfectly. He explains that even when you have an edge, you never, ever go all in. You just can't. Because bad luck isn't just a possibility, it's an inevitability. To win in the long run, you first have to be able to survive the bad times. You have to plan on your plan, not going according to plan. Now, this piece of casino wisdom isn't just for gamblers. Nope, it actually has a very famous cousin in the world of finance, a principle that was championed by none other than the legendary investor Benjamin Graham. Just think about that quote for a second. Think about the freedom in that statement. What Graham is saying is that if you build a big enough buffer, a margin of safety, you don't need a crystal ball. You can stop trying to perfectly predict what the stock market is going to do next week or next year. That buffer is what protects you from a world run by odds, not by certainties. So let's just nail this definition down. Room for error is that gap. It's the cushion, the space between your perfect optimistic forecast and the messy, chaotic reality of the real world. It's the one thing that ensures that when stuff inevitably goes wrong, you're not knocked out of the game. You're still standing, ready for the next hand. Okay, so if this idea is so simple and so powerful, why are we so bad at it? Why don't we apply it to our own lives? Well, it all comes down to a really weird quirk in our psychology. And this study just illustrates it perfectly. A Harvard psychologist, Max Bazerman, found that when we look at someone else's home renovation project, we fully expect it to go way over budget, like 25 to 50% over. We can see all the things that could possibly go wrong. But when we plan our own project, oh no, we assume it's going to go perfectly, on time, on budget. We have this massive blind spot for risk when it comes to ourselves. But here's the big reframe. Having room for error isn't just some defensive, conservative little strategy. It's actually one of the most powerful, offensive strategies you can possibly have. Because what room for error really gives you is endurance. And endurance is the magic ingredient in investing. It lets you stick around long enough for the incredible, mind-bending power of compounding to really work its magic. The biggest gains in finance take time, and you can only get them if you can survive all the bumps and bruises along the way. And hey, don't just take my word for it. This is literally how the best in the world operate. When Microsoft was still a young company, Bill Gates insisted on having enough cash in the bank to cover a full year's payroll, even if they made $0 in revenue. Warren Buffett has a similar rule, promising to always have more than ample cash. They get it. They know that survival is the absolute foundation for success. Okay, so this all makes sense in theory, right? But how do we actually use this in our own lives? Let's make this super practical. Let's talk about planning for retirement. The common way to do it is to look up the historical average stock market return, say around 7% after inflation, and you build your whole savings plan on that number. The room for error approach is different. You start with that same historical average, but then you assume your personal returns will be, say, a third lower than that. It's a really simple mental shift, but it forces you to save more, and that creates a huge buffer against a future that might not look anything like the past. But honestly, the most important reason to build a margin of safety has nothing to do with the risks you see coming. It's to protect you from the ones you can't even begin to imagine. Let me tell you a quick story from World War II. During the brutal, freezing Battle of Stalingrad, a German tank unit was called up from reserve. They had some of the most advanced military machines in the world, and they were desperately needed on the front lines, like yesterday. But when that call came, something was terribly wrong. Out of 104 of these high-tech tanks, fewer than 20 of them could actually start. A catastrophic failure rate of nearly 80%. So what could possibly take down an entire fleet of advanced war machines? The engineers must have been scrambling, thinking it was some major mechanical flaw or sabotage. The cause? Field mice. You heard me right. While all those tanks were sitting there waiting to be called up, mice had nested inside them and chewed through the insulation on the electrical wires. The most sophisticated, powerful plans were completely defeated by something nobody ever thought to plan for. And the lesson from this is it's so profound. We have to avoid single points of failure. The biggest risks we face aren't the ones we see coming. They're the ones we'd never dream of. And in our financial lives, the most common single point of failure is being totally reliant on a paycheck, with no savings to protect us from the unexpected, to protect us from our own version of field mice. So I'll just leave you with this question. You may have a financial plan that's built to withstand all the known risks, a recession, a job loss, you name it, but have you built in enough room for error to survive the things you can't possibly predict? To put it another way, is your plan mouse-proof?